Hello, my name is Zeno. I have a business called Zen Human Design. I have returned to the original revelation in order to come up with an interpretation for the human design system that is in alignment with my objective, which is to make the world a more conscious place. To use human design in such a way that it helps people understand what habits they might have developed in various centers in the chart. So today what I want to talk about is why I don't use types. And I used types very recently until the last, let's say, 4 months or so, when I asked that it be removed from the charts as well. At that time and prior to it, I was somehow being convinced that everybody wanted to know about types and it was the most essential thing, and so I had to include it, even though I was very mindful of how it was that I had been introduced to the concept. Well, I remember going to class when Ra presented this in, I think, 1997, and I loved it right away. Since I was one of those students who has an undefined sacral center and therefore I have a design to wait, I did not understand the varieties of waiting at that time. And to come up with those very catchy names made it a lot easier. By now, when I listen to people refer to themselves by type, I see that this is quite a powerful indoctrination that everyone has just gone along with. Here's the main reason I don't use the types. Ra has been asserting over the last, let's say, 5 years anyway, maybe the last 10 years, I'm not sure, that he is the sole author of the human design system, and he is the only one who can authorize its use. So either you are a black marketeer or you are just stealing from him. And over these same 10 years, it's been very obvious that people think I'm stealing from him and have avoided having sessions with me because I'm not an authorized raw Jovian person. And I understand why people are cautious because the human design system is a gift to the world. And since I was introduced to it as the revelation, as being given to the world, and Ra's interpretation as being something additional to it, I felt very, very responsible to separate out his interpretation from the revelation so that I could use the human design system with a clear conscience. And in the more recent time, I have gotten various emails from people who are clearly agitated or upset that they might be at risk themselves for somebody coming after them and saying, you can't do that without being on the list. And therefore, I think if you love human design and you want to talk with people about human design, recognize that the types are definitely Ra's. That said, you don't need it at all. When a motor gets to the throat, this is revelation. This is not Ra. This is just the pure mechanics. Motor getting to the throat, it's a design to do. How much different is that to saying you have a design to do, and here you have this energy that gets to the throat which can manifest? How different is that? Are you really stymied because you would not be able to say manifester? Instead, you would have to say a design to do? Well, I think it is not that hard. Then the next one is sacral center, defined or not defined. And here I tell you, this is the most important thing for you to see, regardless of whether that's a design to do or a design to wait. That sacral center, being undefined or defined in a chart, is a central piece. Now, additionally, you also need to be able to see that the sacral center is not in definition in isolation. When it is undefined, you can look at it in isolation. Otherwise, there are two centers involved. And this is one of those cheap things about saying generator has to wait to respond. Look, there's a lot of possibility here. You can have the sacral center defined to the throat, and that makes it a design to do. You can have the sacral center defined the solar plexus. That means the weighting is also emotionally weighting. So the sacral center and how it is defined and to what is very central to your understanding of anybody's chart. Additionally, now I have a design that has been, somebody called me, oh, that's a cheeky projector. I think, what's a cheeky projector supposed to mean? Is this supposed to be an insult? I'm kind of guessing that that's what that was meant to be, as a kind of a barb, that projectors we can put down, because if you have a design to do or you have a sacral center defined, you are in the higher categories above those people who have designs to wait with an undefined sacral center. But once again, I tell you that taking a look at the throat first, defined to a motor or not, is still telling you what gets to the throat. And when you lump everybody with an undefined sacral center and an undefined throat, or a throat defined to a non-motor, in the same pool, you really don't understand human design very well. Even if you think, I can say, look, you want to be recognized, you could say that anyway. And then when you get to the people with no centers defined, you have this great term, reflector, because any center that is not defined can magnify the qualities that it feels or experiences. Therefore, that quality of reflecting the energy outward is something that you want to understand. However, with no centers defined, what you would want to understand, first of all, is that it is more similar to somebody with a definition but an undefined sacral center. That's the reason you want to go early in looking at the sacral center and how it is defined. Not just that it is defined so you can say, oh, you've got to wait to respond, which as soon as you see the defined sacral center, you're coming to that anyway. So when you understand that these centers equate very directly with the original revelation information, and then Ra came up with some really powerful and easy memes, I think. Wayne Dyer's language, actually, it's Richard Brody who comes up with the science of memetics and how it is that we take in names that influence our thinking. These types have got to be understood as memes. They're actually interfering with you looking at the chart as for what it is. What centers are defined to what other centers? What are we actually seeing? The only type where you really get a picture of the centers would be this person with no centers defined. Obviously, this is a design to wait. And the other thing about it is, by the time that you can feel the bias, and especially when you look at those strategies and what your authority is, oh my goodness, if you don't recognize that you are being indoctrinated in a very special way, and that underneath that indoctrination is a powerful bias, this is superior to that, and then that one is better than this, and this one here is the reason that you can complain and be bitter or whiny, because you are really the most terrible, the worst off. So recognize that recognizing the first thing to do or to wait gives you a huge starting point.